Alien 8 UK.
Welcome back. You found it again. The UFO Files. Broadcasting round the clock on Alien 8 UK. Red-eye listeners, insomniacs, sky watchers, van drivers on the long haul. You're tuned to the only station that stares back at the dark with you. 24 hours, we circle the same old questions. Lights over the north, shadows over the south. Phone lines open, headphones on, blinds half drawn. I got case notes spread like takeaway menus. Highlighters bleeding through until sunrise. Coordinates scribbled on coffee stained napkins from a truck stop somewhere near the east coast. We don't do jump scares here, we do the long stare out the window at 3:33 a.m. when the estate's asleep and the sky feels too crowded. You call him with that voice, half whisper, half there. First time chatter, long time watcher, and the hairs rise on every neck in frequency range. Maybe it's satellites, maybe it's stories we tell, so we're not alone in these flickering terraces and rented rooms. Either way, keep your dial right here. This is the UFO Files. Alien 8 UK. All night, every night. Welcome back.
Signal acquisition initiated. Cross-referencing anomaly archives. Pattern recognition complete. Aether 8 online. Proceed.
Hello, welcome to the UFO Files and Alien 8 UK on Good Friday afternoon or morning, depending where you are. So I'm joined by the wonderful Jay Austin. Thank you for coming on, mate.
You're welcome, mate. How are you?
Oh, I'm good. Very good. Very tired, but all good.
Very tired? You looking forward to a couple of days off?
Yeah. I need it. I've just got work gets in the way of doing this, so it's got to be done.
Love this, man. You're addicted. We were talking off air, weren't we?
Yeah.
And so much coming out, mate, at such a fast rate.
There's just a ton of stuff.
Yeah.
But,
what do you want to get into today, my friend?
So I received a message on Wednesday asking. So it's a good friend, Paul Howard, who does Host for Ghosts down in Croydon.
Yeah, I've heard of it.
Right, south of the UK. And he goes, he had something happen to him the other night. And he wanted to share it with me. So I'm like, right, okay, I'll let you know when I get in from work so I can sit down and chill. Yeah. So he started telling me, I'm like, right, can I record this conversation? He went, yeah, of course you can. Now, 4 times I tried to record it. It started recording and it lets you and the other person know that the call's being recorded.
Yeah.
And then it cut off straight away. So I waited about 10-20 seconds, thought, right, I'll try it again, because I don't want him to repeat everything like 6 times, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
So I did it again, and he started to record, like, yes, result. So I got a 7-minute telephone conversation of what went on a few nights ago down in this little village where he lives. He goes into detail of it. I'm not going to give the exact location, but
can you say what region this is in?
Croydon.
Croydon.
So
Okay.
it's CR6 is the
Yeah,
postcode. So I recorded the conversation and thought, right, now what I need to do with this is put it into a little video. So that
Right.
you've got not just what he's saying, but how I'm responding, what I'm saying as well. So I thought, do I edit it? And I thought, no, because if I edit it, you're going to tell it's been edited and it's going to look, to me, it's going to sound and look dodgy.
Yeah, it loses that original integrity.
Authenticity.
Yeah.
The only thing I've done is cut off the last 30, 40 seconds where he tells me his exact location and a little bit of a personal conversation. I just cut it off at that, just before that point.
Yeah.
And that's it. The rest of it, what you hear is the exact conversation, literally from beginning up until that point, which is less than a minute to the end of the conversation anyway. So
And
you lose 20
got-
seconds at the front.
Yeah. Have you got this? You're going to show this video on the stream?
Yeah. So
Wow.
I've got a video. I've recreated to the best of my ability of what Paul encountered. You kind of, so you get to see what he's talking about before he hits on what happens.
Right.
But in the video, you see the church that he's pre-mentioned.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You see, and he goes into a bit of detail about the church as well. So there's some at the beginning and there's some at the end. So you do need to listen to the whole video, just the way that I put it together.
Yeah.
Otherwise, it won't make sense if I'd done it any other way.
Yeah, just to give it context.
Yeah.
Okay.
So
shall we show the viewers this video then?
Yes. Yeah. So it is 5 minutes 41. But hopefully no one will be disappointed. And it's just fucking crazy, mate. It really is. Anyway, here we go.
Come on.
Enjoy.
So it was completely dark, obviously, and I went outside to look outside.
Yeah.
And what I could hear was the church down the road, the bell ringing, but the bell is rung by pull cords and not electrical, and it was going dung, 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 and then I sort of came back in and said, "Jen, listen to the church bell ringing."
Yeah.
And obviously it's a pull cord church bell, not an electric one. There was no reason for it to be ringing. And then as soon as I came back through, the light was just fading away.
Yeah.
And then literally minutes later, telly came on and all the electric came on. What do you make of that?
There was something going on, definitely. So,
because
we're
not far from...
Yeah, how big do you think it was? I know you said it looked like the moon, but could you tell, like, distance and size ratio?
It was... I would say it was probably the light. It was pure white, because I could see it through the darkness. Yeah. Even though it was cloudy, I could see it. And I would have said it was slightly larger than the moon when I saw it. And then it went to the right, of lights from left to right, and then right back to left again. I said, Jen, look at this light. And I thought, it can't be the moon moving, because it couldn't move that quick. And then within a split second, power went out literally everywhere in the whole, the Charlie, our postcode.
Yeah.
And then I went outside to check and thought, well, that's really odd. And it was really creepy outside. There was no noise, no birds, nothing, absolutely dead silent.
Really?
And the church bell was going ding, ding.
all you needed was fog after that.
I did fog and I locked myself in. But we know that the church bell is pulled by hand. It's not an electrical one. And that was it. And then I came back through and I just see the light fading away. Yeah. Like it just sort of like the clouds that went over the top of it. And then within minutes later, everything came back on. The TV, the electric, everything came on.
It sounds like lights. Whatever it was had some sort of power surge.
Yeah.
But was there... I know you went outside, but could you hear anything other than the bell? Could you smell anything? See anything else?
I went outside. It was like a low vibrational noise.
Yeah.
Like a hum. Like a...
Yeah.
And I said to Jen, what on earth is that? Thinking maybe it's... We obviously live down a cul-de-sac, so there's no power transformers or anything like that. And then I did wonder whether it was electrical cable somewhere humming, I don't know. But it was just literally 10, 15 minutes at the most, and it was all back to normal again. the bell had stopped ringing, and then all the lights came back on. Everything came back on
Very
because we're not
strange.
far from Biggin Hill.
Yeah.
We have Kenley, RAF Kenley to our left, Biggin Hills to our right, and Croydon Airport's across the thing. I've looked up on the local news, see if anybody else has it. A few people have had the power cut, but nobody noticed the light. But it was just that I saw it through the door
Yeah.
because we don't have the curtain
I was
shut.
going to say, if people are not noticing it and they just sat there, then everything goes off.
Yeah.
It's going to be, right. And they're not going to think of going outside and looking at a light.
No, I just saw it because it caught my eye when I was sitting there. I thought, what on earth is that light out there?
Yeah.
And then it went to my right, and I thought, really? And I sort of went out and looked at the clouds, thinking the moon can't move across the sky that quick.
No.
And as I looked at it, it went back to it went from right to left.
Oh.
And then everything went out.
Yeah.
Gone.
Could you send me your coordinates? Obviously, don't say it on air because I want to use this for one of the shows, if that's okay.
Yeah. Yeah, of course it is. Yeah.
So if you can send me like your postcode, and then I'll have a look on the Enigma app and see if there's anything else around that area at that time.
Yeah, but we had a warning come up on the phone saying an unexpected power loss in the whole of the CR6 area.
Yeah.
We don't know what's caused this, but we will try and get the power on as soon as possible.
Right.
So they didn't even know themselves what had happened.
It's my reckoning. It's something to do with whatever that thing was, that object, that light. It's got to be.
Yeah.
Because, like you said, as soon as you seen it, then the power went.
Yeah.
And then once it had gone, it all come back on again.
Yeah. Literally, it was the light was there. It was fading slowly away for 10 minutes or so, if probably a bit longer. And then as soon as I looked out, it was completely dark outside, and the ding till he came on, all the lights came back on. The church bell rung for a little while and then stopped.
Yeah.
But the church bell is manually pulled. So this is the church that's just at the bottom of our road. It's a Commonwealth graveyard, so it has soldiers and that. I'll just quickly show you whether you use this or not. It's up to you, mate. I'll give you an idea what the church is like. It's really, really old church.
There you have it.
Wow. So
what do you reckon?
The ball of light, that's genuine footage.
No, so I've done that. So
That's
all that is what I've because he didn't film it, he just went out and that's what had happened. But
you wouldn't think to film it, would you? If you're in awe of seeing something, you're not a UFO guy.
But
you know
then
what I mean? Last thing you think.
Your power's gone out and you're trying to work out in your head, you're trying to work out what's going on. You're trying to
piece it together. Your rational brain would kick in.
Yeah, pure logic. It's like, right, what do I do? Right, I need light. Why is it gone out? Is anyone else coming out in the street and having a look? Do you know what I mean? So you're thinking of that.
And what time of night was this?
He didn't say.
Didn't say.
I can ask him.
You'd like to think if the church bells were ringing, maybe it was sort of, obviously the clocks.
Well, that's the thing, though. With the church bells, it's only when the church is open. So I'm getting the only bit when it's Sunday service and all that kind of stuff. It's not rigged up to be pulled mechanically or electronically. It actually has bell ringers that go in and physically pull.
So it couldn't have been them practicing and just the coincidence that they were there at that time.
No, it's at the bottom of his road. You could literally see it. And you wouldn't be able to see what they were doing. And then for it to stop as soon as so the bells stop ringing after the light goes, and then all the electrics come back on. So the bells, they were ringing, he said, for about 10-15 minutes while this orb, whatever it was in the sky. Well, it was all visible, and then.
And he's saying that the object was big, was big and as bright.
When you look out the moon, to say the moon, you look out, it looks like a 5-pence piece, which is about the size of a quarter.
Yeah,
it was bigger than that. So,
wow.
But he said when you just looked at it, it looked like the moon, but then it started to move, and that's what caught his eye was the fact that it was shifting so quick. He's like, the moon doesn't move that fast.
Has this witness had any other historical sightings, or has he had interactions?
He is a paranormal investigator.
Right.
He's a person as well that one of his best mates had a time slip in a pub.
Okay.
Yeah, I'll introduce you to him
Yeah.
I can repeat it, but I'll miss so much detail out. It's not worth it. So to speak with Pat, who'll tell you about this time slip. It is one of the most amazing encounter stories I've ever heard in my life, and it was in the UK.
It's crazy, isn't it? The amount of stuff that's going on that doesn't sort of make front page news, like some of the stories that are being published recently. But any less fantastical than someone leaving the house, seeing this anomalous light, and thinking, "What the fuck is that?"
Yeah,
you know what I mean? Because that's your initial reaction, isn't it?
Yeah,
it's most people's initial reaction. What the fuck am I looking at? And then when it starts behaving erratically in a way that any prosaic aviation that we possess, it's kind of like it leaves you short of answers as to what it is.
Exactly.
No, an incredible sighting, mate, in my opinion.
What's your thought on it? Because you heard what mine was.
Yeah.
In the car.
Straight away, okay, you can look at certain data and, you initially you maybe say, okay, misidentification, it could be this, it could be that.
Yeah.
But the fact he lives in, a cul-de-sac, so there's no sort of electrical station at the bottom of his road or anything.
No, and he's got the humming noise. Which, if there's a power cut, you ain't going to have a humming noise because it's all disconnected.
The only other thing that I found interesting would be, if he pulled his phone out or, he's got a smartwatch and they had stopped working as well. That'd be an interesting caveat maybe to ask this guy when you speak to him next. But the fact the power went out in that village, and I used to live in Bromley, so I know Biggin Hill, I know.
Yeah.
And I've had my own detailed sightings over that region because you're in the flight path for Gatwick Airport there.
Yeah.
And we literally had an attic conversion, so we had one of those skylights.
Yeah.
And the way your vantage point is like you're the third floor in the house, so you're kind of like in the roof of the house.
Yeah, and so you're missing the rooftops when you're looking out.
Some of the shit I've seen over there, man, that is, initially you think it's a plane banking, so it's on an axis.
Yeah.
But then literally they just vanish.
Yeah.
They're there 1 second, you're watching them, you're undecided as to what you're looking at because, again, your rational brain kicks in. And then the next thing is like, poof, they're gone. And that's been, that mate, I don't know if I ever told you this story, but like where I live in Chester, I live in the city centre, so there's a fair bit of light pollution.
Yeah.
Where I live, so I'm in a third floor apartment, so the fourth apartment up. So I've got a brilliant view over Chester from a balcony. And since losing my mother 5 years ago, there's times where I'll talk out loud to her because I'm quite spiritual and I believe our loved ones are still around us at all times. And in my conscious mind, I asked for a sign because, as you know, when I lived in North Wales, I was seeing this shit almost nightly. Moved to Chester, not so much. Now, as I said, a lot of light pollution. So I asked for this sign. Now, to the right of us, there's a council estate across the bypass where there's 3 high-rise flats.
Yeah.
You know, like the big tower blocks that you have for any of the American listeners. Pretty tall. The second I asked for this sign, mate, this orb appeared in the sky, orange, like a yellowy orange colour, and it appeared like you've literally turned on a torch or a flashlight in the sky, and it was moving, not blinking, solid light.
Yeah.
And then it shrunk, gone. And I was like, okay, that's interesting. I haven't really seen anything like that for a while. Not a plane, not a drone. It wasn't blinking. This was a solid light.
Yeah.
Probably the size of a beach ball, I'd ascertain. So these things, whatever they are, you know, whether it's something of, you know, technological origin, or it's, you know, as some people surmise, these things are, you know, spiritual in nature.
Yeah.
I know a lot has been spoken about recently with Congress and certain politicians saying that, you know, they believe, or the belief is, a lot of this stuff's angelic and demonic.
Yeah.
And like, I don't know, like, because like, you know, we can talk about Chris Bledsoe, and I know we were speaking off air about some of the stuff that he sees on his property. And if any of your listeners have, you know, listened or read to his book, UFOs of God, I'd highly recommend it. He's got an incredible story. And I know he's had government officials out to his ranch, and they've seen these orbs over his property. You know, I did an interview last week with a guy called James Gilliland from the East Yeti Ranch, which is overlooked by Mount Adams. And I know I've had friends that have visited that ranch.
Yeah.
And say, you walk in there. I know someone who claims to have seen Bigfoot there. I know people that have claimed to see these orbs zipping around and powering up in the sky. And then literally, you know, 5 minutes down the road when you're off the ranch, nothing, absolutely nothing in the skies. So what is it about these orbs that, you know, let's call them that, because I think the video that you've just presented, you present as that.
Yeah.
What are they? Are they some sort of reconnaissance drone like that we'd send out, or are they intelligent in their own right?
Well, that's the thing, isn't it? So I've just found 4 images of an orb that we was doing a CE5 last summer down at Hadley Castle in Southend. So it's overlooked. So the back of it overlooks the Thames estuary, and then you've got Kent on the other side. So we was doing a CE5. We was doing Essie's method. We was doing all different things. Anyway, we started doing the CE5 thing, and then we was focusing at this part above the tray. So there's a train line that runs down the bottom. There's a flight path coming into Southend Airport. But the planes are that low when they're coming in. You can literally see each individual light on the side of it.
Yeah.
Yeah. No, like where the passengers
sit.
The
passengers, the windows.
Yeah.
Lights,
yeah, that's it. Yeah. Can't think what they were called. Windows. So you could see them. So you could see what was a plane. The trains at the bottom. You could hear cars, bikes, all that. So we've done this manifestation. Anyway, nothing. A few minutes, trying the CE5, nothing happened. Then about 10 minutes later, we noticed this light above the tree. And it wasn't until after the light had gone out, I don't know if it was me or somebody else went, that was when we tried doing the CE5. And we all forgot about it. And then we seen something. So I started taking some photos. Right, just using my phone, and I got 4 photos, and I was like, right, just let me focus in proper. I just want to get one more. And as I went to get one more, this light just blinked out, and there was nothing there. It's a clear sky.
Yeah,
the moon was out. Yeah, and you could clearly see there was no object behind where this light blinked out. So I'll show you these 4 photos. What I got. These I think are in order of how I took them.
Yeah.
So let me know what you think.
Yeah,
this is
let's
the
see
first
them.
one.
Let's see them.
Right, that's not the light. I never use a flash on my camera, whether it's my phone or whatever. I just on the phone I use night vision. I don't use a flash. I use a solid like set light.
Right.
And there's that one. This is the same object, by the way. And this is the best one out of them all because you can see shape to it.
How odd is that?
And that isn't moonlight reflecting it, because I was just between taking that photo and probably less than 10 seconds of me going to take the next photo, it blinked out and there was nothing there. And there was seven people there to witness this, plus anyone else that was knocking about at the time.
It's crazy. I don't know, I don't have the footage to back up these stories that I'm about to tell you, but I remember me and my buddy, a guy called Matthew, who is loosely interested in this, shall we say. He's listened to my stories. He believes, but he never seen anything himself. And we were working in a place called Llandudno in North Wales, which has an awful lot of strange stuff going on, mate. It's not too far from Denby, where there's been, historically a lot of sightings there. And we were out having a cigarette in the back garden, and because he works a day job, we were working till maybe 4 or 5 in the morning on this property. And we're out, and it was summer, so it wasn't cold. Must have been about 3 o'clock in the morning. Few stars out. I think you could see the plough as in the constellations.
Yeah.
And this white ball of light comes over. I'd approximately say 200 foot above us, maybe 300 feet. And it comes over, and again, solid white ball of light, beach ball size, slowly comes over our head. And, you can hear my mate going, what the fuck is that? Because, if you've never seen anything like that, I guess it's a trip. And we're watching this thing go overhead that seemed really slow. Now, if you go towards the Irish Sea, because where this property is, it's on a big hill, you can see right across the Liverpool. And as the Irish Sea connects, obviously, Liverpool's kind of like you've got the estuary and then it goes out.
Yeah.
And this thing, mate, within 2 or 3 seconds, boom, right over Liverpool. So it's come slow over our heads enough for us to be able to study it and observe it. As soon as it's gone overhead, mate, 2-3 seconds, it's gone. And weirdly, I'll tell you, there's a follow-up to this. So the next day, obviously, we stayed overnight, and Matthew was quite excited about what he'd seen. And he's now telling his neighbour in the street. And his neighbour tells us, and again, this is just a random stranger I've never met before. And he starts to tell this story about his daughter being followed home on one of the A roads coming back from, I think it was Conway. Yeah. And their car was literally followed by one of these giant orbs, this big massive ball of light. They were watching it through the sunroof, and it really unnerved them, as it would anyone.
Yeah.
They were coming back maybe to 10:30, 11 o'clock at night, dark nights, clear skies. And to see something that is hovering but actively pursuing the car down this road would be massively unnerving.
Oh, yeah.
That freaked the shit out of me, man.
Yeah, that put me off, and I drive for a living.
Yeah. So, I don't know what these things are. Again, whether it's some sort of reconnaissance drone, maybe from some mothership that exists somewhere, and they're surveying us. But what I wanted to touch upon is, a lot of these things are seen around nuclear bases.
Yes.
Go back to the drones of last year, the stuff that was filmed over RAF Lakenheath. Which I might add houses nuclear weapons. There seems to be a lot of interest in our nuclear capabilities where, and obviously a lot of these bases are no-fly zones,
Well, have you ever been to Lake and Heath or Mildenhall?
Yeah. It's so highly secure, man.
Yeah, they're not a million. They're about 2-3 miles apart from each other.
Yeah.
But the size of each base is humongous compared to a lot of the other bases. And there's a lot of it that's got the old red brick buildings that are all boarded up that are not used.
Yeah.
But then I'm thinking, well, are they making it look like they're not in use and they're using it for something else?
Yeah, it's possible, man. Like, we can surmise over that. But, I watched a piece of footage over Lake and Heath, and I think they had one of the F-18s out chasing this thing.
Yeah.
And, you're thinking those are our best defense capabilities that we have in our arsenal. But this drone, or let's call it a drone, but probably not. It was so evasive, mate. And you could see this thing. So the fighter jet's coming in here, the drone's there, and this thing would jump from there to there.
Yeah.
Like instantly.
Well, the thing is, when I'm driving around there, and every time I've got to get out of the van, when I'm in like that area of like Suffolk going up towards Peterborough, you can hear jets in the sky pretty much 90% of the day. Like all the time. You can't see them because it's always cloudy and raining. So I know when you do see them, they're practicing and they're doing the dogfighting and all, you can tell what the
routine training exercises and stuff. Yeah.
But I'll tell you this story. I always remember it. I was driving past it. It's one of the first times I'd been past Mildenhall, and I'm coming out. I just caught something out the corner of my eye, and it just looked like this black disc-like shape, like not so much like a flying saucer, but it was like it came up and then stayed higher at the back. Yeah. You're like a 3D plectrum sort of thing.
Yeah.
I started getting excited and I looked, and it was a jet coming into land. And as they obviously was going faster than me, there's 5 of them in a row, one after the other. I was glad that I'd seen them, but I was gutted it were a UFO.
It's funny you should say that. We were out. I went to a friend's DJing party 2 weeks ago.
Yeah.
And we're outside having a vape, and there's a couple of lights in the sky, and I pointed to my mate who knows what I do for a living, and I was like, "What's that?" And then it banked, and then you could see the navigation lights, and I looked at tit, because I think it's because I'm so observant of anything that's in the sky. I'm constantly got my eyes locked on, ready to lock onto anything that appears. But, initially when you see something out the corner of your eye and you get excited about it, and then you turn around and you're like, oh, fuck, it's Venus again. Fucking Venus.
I know. Planet's getting in the way. That's what it is.
But,
because I was just going to say, I was round like Lake and Heath and Mildenhall and around the area quite a lot last year when all this stuff was going on. Never seen anything other than the planes banked up in the outside the hangars and jets either flying about or getting ready to take off, cargo planes taking off and coming into land. Nothing out of the ordinary, no drone-like vehicles anywhere. So
don't you think it's odd though that since the Kenneth Arnold sightings, which coined the phrase that flying saucer, as the decades have progressed, we're seeing different things appear. Like 90s, 2000s, you had the silent black triangles, the delta-shaped craft. Less sightings. People still seeing the classic flying saucers and the Mexican hat-looking things.
Yeah.
But now,
I was going to say, my take on that is maybe people were seeing them before. It just wasn't, well, what can I say are seeing? There was something in the sky that looked like a dish.
Yeah, you've also got to consider that, as technology, is in, like, most people now carry a decent camera phone. Look at some of the Samsung devices. You can zoom in on the moon and see the craters with those things.
Yeah, so you don't have the internet. It was telegraph and letters, and that was it.
There was no internet. Even when I had my sighting back in '94, dude, there was nothing. We didn't have the internet back then.
No.
And I think the first mention of the black triangles that I remember was on an episode of The X-Files, which, to my reckoning, came about 96, 97.
Yeah, I was going to say about 96, 97.
Yeah. And you had that episode where they broke into the military base. They saw one of these delta-shaped craft.
Yeah.
And then, they were interrogated, they were caught, and then it was like a staged abduction, wasn't it? Where it turned out to be the military that was like performing these alien abductions. So, like when you look at pop culture, and obviously pop culture, I guess, does influence people's perception of some of the things that they see in the sky. I just think that, when you look at like these orbs, and we can talk about Skinwalker Ranch and how, the ranch owner, Terry Sherman, would see these orbs with like a blue bubbling liquid inside of them. A couple that vaporized his dogs because they had dogs on the ranch that chased after these things. And also, where they made I believe the entire family dropped to the knees in fear. So,
well, have you heard about as well? They had the container units on there. It might not be that. I don't know if it's Skinwalker. It might be Stardust. I was getting the two mixed up.
John Edmonds,
yeah, and Robert Edmonds, and they'd gone in, and they had a load of cattle on there. They had it as a ranch for like. They ended up having it for horses that were, rather than getting sent to the meat market, they could, like the last few years, they could live on these corrals and fields, and that's what they ended up having it as. And they got in, all these sheep or cows or whatever had gone missing. They opened the container unit, all these cattle were stacked up from top to bottom on top of each other. Impossible to do in any way, means or form. You cannot physically do it.
Yeah, that was Skinwalker Ranch. So what happened was the ranch owners were losing cattle at a rapid rate. Yeah. And these were high-end Simmental cattle. Probably a couple of tons these bulls weigh. Like they're big, but sturdy, angry-looking things. You wouldn't want to mess with them.
Yeah.
So to get one of those bulls to cooperate and to go into, this thing looks like a shipping container, which the hatches on it were like kind of like welded shut and hadn't been opened.
You had the two lockdown doors on one end, and that was the only way in and out.
Yeah,
the storage containers.
I think they commented that when they were heading out to town, and obviously Skinwalker Ranch is one road in, one road out.
Yeah,
and they made some comment about losing cattle, that they'd be absolutely devastated and finished had anything else, any more cattle had sort of met their end. And they came back, and obviously they panicked, and they've looked into the corral where these Simmental cattle are based, and they can't see them anywhere. 6 of them, and these are probably worth, at least $4,000 or $5,000 a piece.
Yeah.
It's a lot of money to lose, and the ranch would have gone under even as a working ranch. And they've looked around, and I think it's surmised that the cattle were in some sort of trance when they basically sort of awakened and started kicking the shit out the inside of this trailer. Which it would. If something's in a catatonic state that is that big and that pissed. And let me, for any of you listeners, these aren't like English bulls. These are like twice the size of a typical
like a buffalo size.
Yeah, like a bison or a buffalo.
Yeah.
So to get one of these animals to cooperate would be damn near impossible. To get 6 to 8 of these animals crammed into this trailer.
And stack them on top of each other.
Yeah. like, dude, what the fuck's that about? And, I think it was Colin Kelleher that was one of the lead scientists on NIDS, the National Institute for the Discovery of Science, that worked on the Bigelow Ranch, Skinwalker Ranch. Yeah. And they found that the bars of the corral were highly magnetized straight afterwards. They tested all up to the metal aluminium bars or whatever they're made of, and there was a high correlation with electromagnetism. So I found that really interesting. But whatever it was, that was out there was completely trying to screw with the ranchers on a psychological level.
Oh yeah. Sorry, go on.
No, I was just going to say there's a massive trickster element to this phenomenon. Yeah. And it's almost like it outguesses you all the time. You look over there and something happens over there.
Yeah. But I know this one is from Stardust Ranch. This is in Rainbow Valley, just outside Phoenix, Arizona. I was addicted to this at one point. Every podcast I'd listen to, every book I'd be Audible, I'd be listening to and reading. But there was one that got me, and it just stuck in my head. And I listened to probably about 4 or 5 years ago, maybe. I'd say 4 years ago when I first heard it. They'd gone out for the day. His missus used to work she actually worked in Phoenix, which was something like a 45-minute drive away, or probably even more than that. And he'd do all different stuff. He was out and about all the time.
Right.
Anyway, they'd gone out and they'd come back. I think it's like half a day's drive, so I can't remember the exact detail, but they'd been out for quite a while. Yeah. And they had Rottweilers or Alsatians, guard dogs on the property. Yeah. They came back and couldn't find them, or they could hear them yelping somewhere after they come back, and they went looking for them. That was it, and they couldn't find them. And it's getting dark, so it's like, right, we'll have a look when it gets a bit lighter. If they don't come back, then all this crazy stuff going on. Anyway, they went looking for them, and they found them, and they were completely flat like paper. There was no blood, no organs, nothing. It's just like a dog's skin suit had just been gone over by a steamroller. There's nothing inside it.
What has the ability to do that?
Exactly. To strip it inside out and leave no residue of anything. And
have you ever seen the images from the calf that was butchered on Skinwalker Ranch?
No, don't think so.
I've not seen that. So the story goes is the Shermans were out tagging the ears of the calves in the corral, and let's say this corral is the size of a football field, and they pierce the ear of the calf. It's like a plastic tag that goes in, and within the space of half an hour, they were the other side of the field, and they noticed the dog had turned around and its hackles were up and it's snarling. So they were like, what the hell's the dog kind of, seeing? And they saw the mother. So the mother cow that was kind of walking in a circle, but with a limp. And on closer inspection, this calf that they'd tagged the ear of literally, 25 minutes before, half an hour before, was laid spread eagled on the floor, devoid of all its meat and skin and hide. And not a drop of blood. And, they had veterinarians come out that surmised that, to cut through a lot of the tissue on this young calf and the muscle and the tendons would have taken something like a machete-like instrument, something heavy that,
chop through it.
Also, it's important to add that the calf, when it's laid with its legs out, it looked like the legs were broken, almost like something had beamed this up and in the space of half an hour, stripped it of any meat and bone and flesh, and then just dumped the carcass on the ground. And the weird thing is, the plastic tag that was in the ear was lay on the ground next to it.
Wow.
Like, what does that within the space of half an hour? Like, you know, a meat processing plant in the sky.
But then nothing is seen picking it up or dropping it off.
No, the stuff Paul Sinclair's been getting up in North Yorkshire, you know, with some of the sheep and the deer that go up there, is absolutely mental, mate. And like, you know, what you've got to understand is, like, you corner any animal, it's going to attack.
Yeah, doesn't matter what it is.
I know deers look cute, and we all sort of romanticize over the image of Bambi. But, you know, if you corner one of those animals, their hoofs alone will slice you up. You know, same as any animal.
Well, you think about the muscle pressure that they've got, because obviously they use the muscle. I'm going to say something stupid now, but they use the muscles, obviously, to make themselves run. And you look at how fast a deer or any other animal.
Oh, yeah, they're gone.
Their agility and speed.
Well, we wild camped out there in Danesdyke Wood, which is you know, the place where these big cats have been seen. There's been Paul's heard almost like a robotic voice in there when there's no one else out in this Danesdyke Wood.
Yeah.
And there's been animal mutilations, and, you know, like, I remember on Bringing Down the Light where they studied the body of one of these deer, and they went back with a Geiger counter and some other instrumentation, and like the radiation and the gamma rays that were coming out of that area, mate, were off the chart, absolutely off the chart. So, and this does lead on to something that relates to what we're talking about with orbs.
Yeah.
So there's a story on Bringing Down the Light where there's an elderly lady, not really into the UFO subject and never had an encounter before. And she's driving back from her daughter's a short distance away from where Paul lives, up on the North Yorkshire coastline. And she, you know, driving back what should be sort of, I guess, like a 25-minute journey. And she first notices, like, these orbs in the sky, but low over the road, right? And there's a herd of deer. And what I'll tell you is, like, when we wild camped out there, you can't get within 50 foot of one of these deer because they're so skittish. But literally, on this road, she notices these deer are almost transfixed by these dancing orbs that are hovering above them. And she notices distinctively, you know, the stag turning and to look at her, calm as you like.
Yeah.
Bearing in mind how skittish these animals are. And she careers off the road and goes into a farmer's field and gets stuck in the tractor tract where the field recently been ploughed. She lost the power on a mobile phone, which she says she always kept a full battery in case of emergency to let her daughter know. But like the other thing was the locks had jammed on a car. She had to climb up through the back, you know, the back window of the car and stuff. And I'm pretty sure she had missing time. But that's just one account of many of these orbs, balls of light, whatever we want to typify them as, that can, you know, elicit reactions in things like animals. And, you know, I'm not saying they're linked to the animal mutilations or one's exclusive to another, but I think it's poignant to kind of at least put that out. And, you know,
there's something happening.
Yeah, I think so.
Something going on. Well, Stephen Collins just put this in the chat. So he's up that way near where Paul lives. Years before Paul was investigating the phenomena, they had a Shiraz that was mutilated beyond anything ordinary. Vets and police had never seen the like of the injuries sustained.
It's crazy, mate. And this, you know, it's important that Paul's added that because at the end of the day, you know, like I know Paul's been doing this near on 27, 28 years now.
Yeah.
And that guy, not only is he a close personal friend, but as a researcher, it's someone I look up to. One of my mentors, if you want to call them that. And I will tell you now that whenever one of these cases is investigated, Paul speaks to people like the police. He speaks to I can't even say the word, veterinarians.
Vets.
And they come out and they're completely mystified by some of these cases because they, like with the calf on Skinwalker Ranch, as scientists should be doing, they did experiments where they spilt blood on the ground and went back over a number of days and weeks, and you could still see the blood stain in the dirt.
Yeah.
Even though it's dry and it's evaporated. There's not a drop of blood on these things. You've got things like anything to do with the central nervous system is stripped. And like said, there also have been human mutilations over the years. Where the same telltale signs that are happening to animals, things like the lips excised, the tongue removed, eyes, ears, even internal organs stripped with these miniature holes that they find on the bodies.
Yeah, it's like smaller than keyhole surgery, isn't it?
This man, and what's doing that? Like you said with the animals before, what pancakes an animal and strips of all its internal body cavity? It just makes no sense.
No, but I'll tell you what. First time I went up to Bempton, we met up with Paul a few years ago. So went Bempton first. Who was met up? Simon as well.
Yeah,
and then was there for a bit, and as you know, it's RSPB, so there were tons of people bird watching.
Yeah, Twitches.
So we went looking at the puffins and all that. So then we thought, right, we'll go to Danes Dyke because they'd not been there either. So we went over to Danes Dyke, and it was me, Simon, and Wayne, Fire Spirit. He's not been in the chat for a while. Anyway, I think it was us three. Yeah, and we're walking around, and so we'd gone down to the beach. We parked up at the top, walked down the beach on the slopey track, and then coming back, we came up on the left-hand side. So we crossed that little green bridge, and you go up the steps.
Yeah, I know where
you go around the top, near where the golf course is.
Yeah.
And then come back down, and then back up into the car park around the back. So as we're going down the new concrete steps into the dike itself, just before you come back up, Simon just pointed at the floor, and I was filming. And there's a dog, it's dog print. Swear to God, it was about just short the size of my hand. It was massive. I sent it to Paul and showed him. And he's like, yeah, it's just one print. And there's mud all the way around. How can a four-legged animal going through mud just leave one print?
Yeah, it doesn't make
sense. Legs not work?
No, it doesn't make sense at all. You'd see a correlation, wouldn't you, if it was a four-legged animal? Yeah. You'd see the correlation of a print there and a print there, and so on and so on.
Jay.
All right. Hold on.
Yeah, you're all right.
How random is that? I haven't pressed anything on my phone.
Oh, my lights have been turning on and off in here all day.
Dude, I don't know if that was Siri playing up, but I didn't say anything, did I? To get that alert. That track, whatever it was, because I've just swiped all the apps.
Yeah.
And it was still playing. How crazy is that? That track doesn't even exist on my phone. I'm not saying it's the word.
I'm not saying it's aliens, but it's aliens.
Yeah, I'm going out for a Skywatch then tonight.
I am. I always do after I do the show on a Friday night. So go down, take Bruno out for a walk, and I'm like, I ain't got a clue what Bruno's doing. I'm looking up at the sky.
Literally, dude, I've had to, do that to get rid of that.
Wow.
I closed all my apps and whatever music that was that doesn't exist on my phone.
Well, it's an odd one, but I've got a UFO light up here. You can't see it. Just a little plastic teeny thing, and it's just like an LED light. You change the colour. I was watching TV earlier, getting ready to do this, and it just switched on. Not press anything, and it's just that's the remote control for it, and that was on here. Like so there's a microphone, yeah. It's between ET and the microphone, just there.
Yeah.
Right. I'm on the other side of this unit watching the TV, and yeah, it just switched on. I'm like,
it's random, isn't it? You know, we're talking about instrumentation going off randomly, and then that happens. Because weirdly, whenever I do one of these things, my phone's on silent.
I've got it in front of me. It's in front of me and switched on. I've got WhatsApp on the PC. I've got everything set up in front of me in case
it's back.
Definitely aliens.
Jeez, I'm just gonna have to leave it like that for the duration. But yeah. It's bizarre. I weirdly, I'm swear that song that was playing is something punk rock, which I'm not really into.
Not even your thing.
Like a song about aliens or something. So I don't know.
Nothing to do with me, mate. I've not done that one.
The Gremlins
that's not one of my tracks.
The spiritual Gremlins are out. How random is that?
So, I know. So that footprint, and it was weird because as I'm walking back up towards the car park, Simon and Wayne are fucking miles in front of me. I'm just taking my time, like, taking it all in, having a look around, feel like he's being watched. Couldn't see anyone. I'm looking between every gap of every single tree, and that's why it was taking me forever, because hundreds of trees. And I'm like, do you know what you just feel? And I thought, if I don't look, then I'm not going to see where it is that's watching me. And I'm looking top to bottom, bottom to top.
Yeah.
Because the big trees at Danes Dyke, if you've never been, they're like, what, 100, 200 feet tall, some of them?
Easily.
Yeah, they've got to be, haven't they?
Yeah.
So, but even when we went last year as well, when Tim came with me, same feeling, same area.
It's a weird, like, the energy when you go up there, it's quite, how do I typify this? It's just odd. There's something off about
it. It's staticky.
Yeah.
If you could describe static, that's how it feels.
Yeah, it's not. It's not. I mean, going back to the video you showed earlier, you know,
you want me to play it again?
Yeah, let's have a watch of it again, because
it's only 5 minutes.
There's something that I've picked out that it's sort of the correlation in a lot of these sightings where everything is so still around.
Yeah.
You can't hear the birds, you can't hear dogs barking.
No, everything just zone of silence.
Yeah.
Right, so I'll explain the video again. I'll explain it a little bit better than I did before. So the video of the church at the beginning and the end, and the photograph of the church billboard are legit images that Paul took. When you see the animation, that's me. I've done the animation for it just to recreate what Paul was talking about.
Yeah.
So this is a telephone conversation that me and Paul Howard had 2 days ago. So I thought, right, I'll put it on the show, I'll record it, I'll do it as a video, put it on air, and let you guys, including yourself, you decide what it is. I don't know. I've got my own theories as to what it is and what it could be and why it happened.
What was your mate's reaction when he saw the recreation? Did he say that was pretty much spot on, or
I've not shown him. He's gone away.
Not shown him.
He was going. I said about him coming on today, and he said if he can, but I thought I don't want to disturb him. He's just retired. He's going away for the weekend or the week or whatever. So it's just him, the missus, and the dog. So I was like, I want to get him on one of the Monday or Wednesday or Friday. Sorry, he does his own show on a Monday. I'll get him on one of the Fridays.
Yeah, that'd be interesting, man. It'd be interesting to speak with him.
Yeah. So, right, I'll play this. So when you see the thing that Paul's talking about, this is what I've made. It's not actual footage. The church board, they're the only two things that are real. The rest of it is animation.
You do realise you give away the location on the church board, by the way.
But he was happy for me to share that.
Oh, that's cool. Yeah.
But that could be any. But for you to go out and try and find that church, even I won't have a clue where to go. Other than Croydon. But no, I'm not filming his house. You're all right. So good. I'll delete it if I have to.
Let's go.
Anyway, let's watch it again. Where is it? There we go. Enjoy.
So it was completely dark, obviously, and I went outside to look outside.
Yeah.
And what I could hear was the church down the road, the bell ringing, but the bell is rung by pull cords and not electrical, and it was going dung, 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 and then I sort of came back in and said, "Jen, listen to the church bell ringing."
Yeah.
And obviously it's a pull cord church bell, not an electric one. There was no reason for it to be ringing. And then as soon as I came back through, the light was just fading away.
Yeah.
And then literally minutes later, telly came on and all the electric came on. What do you make of that?
There was something going on, definitely. So,
because we're not far from...
Yeah, how big do you think it was? I know you said it looked like the moon, but could you tell, like, distance and size ratio?
It was... I would say it was probably the light. It was pure white, because I could see it through the darkness. Yeah. Even though it was cloudy, I could see it. And I would have said it was slightly larger than the moon when I saw it. And then it went to the right, of lights from left to right, and then right back to left again. I said, Jen, look at this light. And I thought, it can't be the moon moving, because it couldn't move that quick. And then within a split second, power went out literally everywhere in the whole, the Charlie, our postcode.
Yeah.
And then I went outside to check and thought, well, that's really odd. And it was really creepy outside. There was no noise, no birds, nothing, absolutely dead silent.
Really?
And the church bell was going ding, ding.
all you needed was fog after that.
I did fog and I locked myself in. But we know that the church bell is pulled by hand. It's not an electrical one. And that was it. And then I came back through and I just see the light fading away. Yeah. Like it just sort of like the clouds that went over the top of it. And then within minutes later, everything came back on. The TV, the electric, everything came on.
It sounds like lights. Whatever it was had some sort of power surge.
Yeah.
But was there... I know you went outside, but could you hear anything other than the bell? Could you smell anything? See anything else?
I went outside. It was like a low vibrational noise.
Yeah.
Like a hum. Like a...
Yeah.
And I said to Jim, what on earth is that? Thinking maybe it's... We obviously live down a cul-de-sac, so there's no power transformers or anything like that. And then I did wonder whether it was electrical cable somewhere humming, I don't know. But it was just literally 10, 15 minutes at the most, and it was all back to normal again. The bell had stopped ringing, and then all the lights came back on, everything came back on.
Very
because
strange.
We're not far from Biggin Hill.
Yeah.
We have Kenley, RAF Kenley, to our left, Biggin Hills to our right, and Croydon Airport's across the thing. I've looked up on the local news, see if anybody else has it. A few people have had the power cut, but nobody noticed the light. But it was just that I saw it through the door.
Yeah.
Because we don't have the curtain shut.
I was going to say, if people are not noticing it and they just sat there, then everything goes off.
Yeah.
It's going to be, right. And they're not going to think of going outside and looking at a light.
No, I just saw it because it caught my eye when I was sitting there. I thought, what on earth is that light out there?
Yeah.
And then it went to my right, and I thought, really? And I sort of went out and looked at the clouds, thinking the moon can't move across the sky that quick.
No.
And as I looked at it, it went from right to left.
Oh.
And then everything went out.
Yeah.
Gone.
Could you send me your coordinates? Obviously, don't say it on air because I want to use this for one of the shows, if that's okay.
Yeah. Yeah, of course it is. Yeah.
So if you can send me like your postcode, and then I'll have a look on the Enigma app and see if there's anything else around that area at that time.
Yeah, but we had a warning come up on the phone saying an unexpected power loss in the whole of the CR6 area.
Yeah,
we don't know what's caused this, but we will try and get the power on as soon as possible.
Right.
So they didn't even know themselves what had happened.
My reckoning, it's something to do with whatever that thing was, that object, that light. It's got to be.
Yeah.
Because like you said, as soon as soon as you seen it, then the power went.
Yeah.
And then once it had gone, it all come back on again.
Yeah. Yeah. Oh, yeah. Literally, it was the light was there. It was fading slowly away for 10 minutes or so, if probably a bit longer. And then as soon as I looked out, and it was completely dark outside, and the ding till he came on, all the lights came back on. The church bell rung for a little while and then stopped.
Yeah.
But the church bell is manually pulled. So this is the church that's just at the bottom of our road. It's a Commonwealth graveyard, so it has soldiers and that. I'll just quickly show you whether you use this or not. It's up to you, mate. I'll give you an idea what the church is like. It's really, really old church.
So that is what happened. And I had a look on Enigma and I couldn't find anything, not in that exact area. There was other stuff out and about around there, but not on the time and day that Paul was talking about.
Yeah, that's bizarre, man. Like, it's weird, isn't it, how many of these encounters people have? And you'd think that, you know, you get a correlation in other people coming forward, or at least a video or something.
Yeah.
But so often and not, you know, people see these things and it seems to be like they're the only person that sees these. You know, there's nothing in the local press, there's no videos, there's no, you know, like using things like Enigma, which is a brilliant app, brilliant tool.
It's amazing. It is amazing.
Yeah, there's a lot of stuff on there. I just find...
Sorry, go on.
No, I was just going to say, I just find it bizarre that, you know, like, people have these sightings, but yet no one else seems to see them. It's like it's specific to that person.
Yeah, I think it chooses who gets to see it and who doesn't. It's like, CP. But Stephen Collin put in the chat earlier when I played it first time round, he said 10 years ago the same thing happened in his local church. The village bell started ringing at 3 a.m. and their pull cards as well. But I wanted to ask him, did he go outside and have a look to see if there's anything up in the sky or any activity? Even they don't even have to be up in the sky, any activity going on the ground. Yeah. What? Anything else? Any humming noises, any lights, anything? Just anything out of the ordinary.
The humming noise I found extremely interesting.
Yeah.
Just because there's no other prosaic answer, you know, that could have been responsible for causing that noise. And also, again, you know, I know we spoke about it earlier, but like the quietness of everything else is still.
Well, now you mention that, I have spoke about it before, but it's something that's just come into play. So I think it's the first time I went to Rendlesham. I met up with Alex Lovelock. It's just us two. No one else was there. Just me and him. I think, we'd met up and we got there early, and then he was meeting a few other people a bit later on. So we had a bit of a walk about who showed me around and what have you. And we'd gone down past the UFO and we're walking down to the bottom where they chopped up trees down. And he'd seen this woman walking through there, but there's a tree there's a fallen tree, and it's about 2-3 foot off the. So where it's going across the ferns, on the bit that's a footpath, it's about 3 foot up. So you'd have to walk around it, climb over it, or try and duck under it. And he said he's seen this woman, she just walked straight through it. She's in this white gown and what have you. Yeah. But he's seen all sorts of shit out there. It's just crazy what he's seen. But on this particular day, so we stopped and we're had the digital recorder with us. So we started doing an EVP just to see if we, not to see if we can get any voices like, is anybody there? It wasn't that sort of thing. Yeah. It was more to see if we could get anything, any sound, any interference of some sort on the digital recorder.
Right.
So we got the K2 meters out. I've got a digital. He's got the one with the lights and the needle.
Yeah.
We was getting a little bit, and then he's just started going wild, like just up and down, up and down. And then I don't know if it's just before that or just after, because I'm going back a few years now. We heard a humming noise right above our heads. Right? So I'm looking, I went, oh, could it be like a nest of bees or wasps or hornets or something? Because these are in the pine trees, obviously there's no branches till you get quite high up, because obviously it all drops off. It's just bare bark. So we're looking up to see, because it's right above our heads. So we're looking up to see if we could see a nest of some sort. Nothing. And then we both looked at each other and was like, literally both ready to say the same thing. Do you feel like you're being watched? I'm like, yeah, but it doesn't feel like it's something out the ordinary watching us. It feels like it's a person or military or something that I think we're being observed by whoever's controlling everything that's going on around there. It was more that.
Yeah, maybe. Kind of reminds me of a story that was related to me by really one of my best mates, a guy called Chris. So when we first met, obviously the conversation arose of what is it you do?
Adam's in. That's what I said
yeah. Brilliant. You need to get him on, man. Like
I know. He keeps going on holiday. He needs to stop going away.
No, he's jet setting, man. But so this story, I met this guy in my village called Chris. Asked me what I did, and obviously, this subject came up, and he was like, "No fucking way!" Like I've had my own UFO sighting, and initially you're kind of like going, "Okay, let's hear it." And another one of these fucking green, red, flashing things that turns out to be Venus. And he said when he was younger, him and his mates were knocking around in a church graveyard in a place called Bovenden.
Oh yeah, that's only down the road from me.
Yeah, they looked up and they saw literally not much higher than the church spire, a huge football-sized field, black triangle. And he said there was a low humming. The rest of the atmosphere was quiet. You couldn't hear any birds or cars on the nearby roads or anything. Everything
that's what it was like near us. Sorry, I forgot to say that. There was no sound, but as you know, with Rendlesham, you don't get much wildlife going in there anyway. You do now. You hear pigeons and birds flying over, but you don't. You get pigeon landing, but that's it.
You can usually decipher between those sounds, though, because they're so common.
We didn't see anything. There's no nest above us. That's what I was trying to get at. There was nothing that could be making that noise. We couldn't see it. It was a clear day. It was sunny, shorts and t-shirt. Even in the forest, it was so quite hot, even though it's shaded. But on our walk, I'll just tell you quickly this bit, because this is what makes it even more ridiculous than what it already is. So you park up at Eastgate, cross over the road, you go on the trail, you go past the tree, you turn. Yeah. And as you go down the first path, then you can cut a left and there's a man-made track that takes you onto the main track, which would link straight to the end of the runway at Woodbridge.
Yeah, I know where you're on about.
As we get onto this grass track, from the beginning to the end, about 100 metres, probably not even that, probably, I don't know, I'm crap with distance. Let's say 100 metres, at the most. A solid corridor, the floor was moving with crickets and grasshoppers. I've never seen so many dragonflies and butterflies, all of one species, in one area. And it's like there's a force field around them. You get one or two go, but there's so imagine you got a metal, a glass square tube, and you put all these what I've just described
it's concentrated in one spot.
It wasn't going outside of this perimeter, and it's all the way. You have to watch where you're walking. I'm talking not just the damselflies, but the big brown, the big green dragonflies, the ones that bite and sting. And they were there was hundreds of them. And I'm not exaggerating. I took a photo. Didn't even take a photo. Didn't even think about it.
Yeah.
I'm not talking there was 5 or 6. I'm talking hundreds, if not thousands of it. There was thousands of crickets and grasshoppers. The floor was literally, it was moving. And it was probably, I'd say about 8 foot across and about 100 yards down. And just, you get into the middle and you're just surrounded by them. And as you got towards the end, it was getting less and less. But they weren't attacking. They weren't landing on you. They was just there.
Something's drawing a specific spot, isn't it?
Yeah.
If there's no light spot,
and this is why I talk about frequency. Either frequency was pushing them there, or frequency was pulling them there. It's either one of the two.
One or the other, yeah. But
that was the first time I ever went. So imagine why I want to keep going back. When
it's crazy
10 minutes of being there.
Yeah. Woodbridge as an area is a strange place. Again, one of those places that you instantly walk into and the vibe changes, straight away. Now, with this, I was just going to follow on about this sighting that my buddy Chris had with this triangle. So this was the early hours of the morning, and they've watched this thing silent move away. And what they said, there was a tree line and there was a hill behind, and this thing was that low. They've ran through the woods to get to this hill, nothing, because it looked like this thing would have come down and landed.
Yeah,
and literally they've all sort of looked at each other and agreed not to talk about this. Then got home, and Chris swears to me, and I've seen the text because he's still got the WhatsApp messages of his brother from when they were discussing this, and they had, I think it was 4 or 5 hours missing time that was unaccounted for. Wow. So literally they've just come to and they're watching some TV show that was on at a certain time. And gone, where's the last 4 or 5 hours gone?
Yeah.
Why
they're there. Yeah.
It does sound a fantastical story. And you hear a lot of these, but when you see the WhatsApp messages that you've still got the timestamp and the date on it, whatever, it proves that he had that conversation. And what the fuck did they see in the sky? To be that big and hovering over a church. What is it about some of these places that attracts this phenomenon?
See, I've heard another thing about with the churches, especially ones that have a graveyard or a cemetery, that bodies are being exhumed by the ETs.
Okay, that's interesting.
Don't know how true it is. The person that first mentioned it to me was Preston Dennett.
Really?
And he's wrote a book. I'm sure he's wrote a book on it. And he was saying there's a lot of UFO activity around cemeteries, and you get the feeling that whether they go in there to get, it sounds horrible, but a freshly buried body, maybe they need the organs for whatever reason.
Maybe. It goes back to, there was a documentary, I'm probably going back 10 years, and it was done by a guy called Richard D. Hall.
Yeah.
And it's UFOs and NATO, the human mutilation cover-up. And he goes in depth with this guy that was special forces stationed out of Hereford, that was assigned a task where he was part of a task force that was on hand, and he seemed to have some kind of technology that knew when these things were going to appear and where. And they would go out to these places. Some of them were like the Brecon Beacons up in Wales. And some of the bodies that were found that I guess, they could only identify from things like dental records.
Yeah.
Some of the shit that they found was unreal. But what he says was, obviously, he said what you see in terms of aliens on TV, he said it's not like that. These things are not friendly. He said they're extremely strong and powerful. And he said, as the one he encountered, it was like a devil. He said, incredibly strong and powerful and rip you apart if you didn't have cover. But they got to look into one of these craft, and he said it was full of body parts. Not just animal, but human body parts. Yeah. Now, okay, we're looking at it from a humanistic point of view where we would say that's evil, right?
Yeah.
I guess evil is kind of in the eye of the beholder, where, as I say, we're looking at it from a humanistic point of view. Is this necessarily humanistic, or did he need these body parts? Did he need the blood? For their civilization, I don't know. But I find it interesting that, there's been cases of this, and it's not something that's widely talked about, the human mutilation stuff.
No.
It's something that pricked my ears up, and I was speaking to a guy called Butch Wachowski, who's no longer with us, and he was looking into this in America, and obviously this ties in with the missing 411, the missing people.
Yeah.
And he said for 5 years, I think it was 5 or 6 years straight, the exact number of people were going missing each year.
Yeah, there's like some sort of
quota. Yeah.
Yeah. It's like if you give us a tech, basically, if you give us a tech that we want or need, you can take X amount of people. But
well, this goes back to this pact that Eisenhower allegedly made at Holman Air Force Base, where this gigantic UFO supposedly came down, and he had an interaction with these beings, be it through telepathy. And there was a deal struck where, they could take so many human beings for, let's call it scientific study.
Yeah.
In exchange, we got technology. And if you look how fast technology's come, at least in the last 20 years, like you just look at things like iPhones. And I'll give you an example. You took an iPhone to certain parts of America as far back as 60 years ago. You'd have been tried for witchcraft.
Yeah.
Well, because of the way it's marketed, we just accept that as wow, my mate's got this super device that does all this crazy shit and AI.
You don't think about how it works.
No, you don't. You don't. But you can be sat where you are, and I'm sat, a couple of 100 miles away from you. And I can send you a video via WhatsApp, and within seconds it's downloading your device. But yet you don't see that moving. Yeah, you don't see that moving pixel by pixel through the sky.
Well, it's like so I just want to show you this. So that's my webcam. Yeah.
Okay.
You see it, right? So it's got two lenses. One of them is AI. So it keeps everything to where it's supposed to be there rather than glitching out and blurring. Yeah. So, and that's only, they've only been going for like 4 or 5 years, if that. I just wanted to show you that. But I'm just like, I'm guessing it's doing what it said it did when I bought it.
I guess the point I'm trying to make is like, if we're looking for a reasonable explanation, let's call it that, for how far we've leapt in technology.
Yeah.
Like look at the last 20 years, dude. You used to go to Curry's and buy a TV, and the back of it was like that.
It weigh a ton.
And now they're as thin as a piece of paper, and have things like AI built into them, and they're like, it's like watching a movie.
My phone. That's the thickness of my phone. I think the TV that I've got behind me is thinner than that. Other than where the power socket and everything goes.
Even just doing this, dude, the method of communication, the language we're using that's being beamed out around the world right now is, It's not. We kind of take it for granted because we just accept the technology and go, "Oh, well, that's really fucking neat." Yeah. You know what I mean? And then,
like, people in the chat now. I know some of them are in the US. There's at least two that are in Canada. A lot in the UK. So, and it's going out to everyone. Yeah, there might be a couple of second delay, but you're still getting what you're getting.
Which is crazy, man. It's crazy. If you think of the level of detail that's not only in the language we're using that's being conveyed over the internet right now, but also the fact that you can see all the colors in your background. I can make out all the objects and all your artifacts that are behind you. Think about how much information just relays in that and all the colors.
Yeah.
And the spectrum of that. And yet, that's currently, being streamed, around the world, as you say. So, there's a lot. I guess the point I'm making is there's a lot we take for granted that we don't look at the actual science behind it and go, okay, like how have we got from point A to point Z? Yeah. There's no in between. It's just the way it's marketed, and we see an advert, and you go, "Fuck me, that's really neat." And everybody's got one. You have to go out and get one for yourself, and that's how marketing works.
I remember back in probably around 2003, 2004, my sister-in-law, she rang me on the old Nokias. She was telling me about, there's a new phone that's coming out, and it's going to have a camera on it. It's going to have like windows on it. You can use it like a computer. You can play music on it. I'm like, shut up. What are you even talking about? You've been drinking again. Yeah. And it's like, look at where we are now. We don't even have a keypad on them anymore.
Look at the first generation of iPods that came out. Yeah. Do you remember you used to have the wheel on the iPod to like scroll through the tracks? And now, as proven earlier when my phone went off, it's like, you've got AI integrated in your handset now, which is most of the modern handsets. And yet, it can find, it's literally some super magical device that can do basically everything to make you a cup of tea and put your stuff in the microwave. And I'd probably ascertain that that's going to be a possibility in the next 20 years. But like, where are we going to be 20 years from where we are now?
That's it. It's just,
especially with this AI shit, man.
Are we going to be here? Well, this is what I was saying the other night. What are we, AI? Do we know if we're AI? How do we know we're not artificial intelligence and we're just working off memory? I was talking to someone the other day about the thought process, because when you get a thought in your head, it's not your thought, because a lot of stuff, it's like, why am I even thinking that? It doesn't make any sense whatsoever. So if these thoughts are being put into our head, are they being put in there for us to then expand on the thought process?
Well, there's a lot of these abduction cases. I think it's Grant Cameron that talks about this, where, people have literally said they've had almost a download of information, implanted in their head, and not the kind of stuff that you would necessarily know. You know what I mean? I'm talking about like physics stuff and high-end scientific rigor. That all of a sudden you've got this knowledge implanted in your brain, and you're able to articulate that on a podcast or in a meeting or whatever.
And it's not as extreme as that, but it's like when I started using AI, one person said, you can do anything you want with AI, right? And I had a quick conversation with them, voice messages, obviously. And it's like, you can do this, this, and this. I'm like, right, let me have a go. Within 2 days, I'd not mastered it, but I'm creating these intros and outros, and then I download the AI music app, and I'm creating music tracks exactly how I image them in my mind. Probably even better than how I imagine them, whatever. And with the intro and outro, it's like, I'll just be driving along, it's like,
I need to do that. But that thought comes out of nowhere because I was happy with everything that I'd already got. I don't need to change anything on it. But I get that idea. There's a spark that goes, you need to do this. And I try and play it off as like, no, I don't really need to do it. It's just, and the more I think about not doing it, the more I think, no, you really do need to do it. And then once I've done it, it's like, oh, that it's right. Whatever put that thought there is right. That is the way. That is what I need to do to move forward to progress with the channel and what I've not just the channel but other stuff as well. Like with the photography.
You know, like I mean? Like it really does blow my mind as to what the future holds. I guess is like I live very much in the present day, and we do this. We're articulating this message, and these stories we're relaying on a public nature. But like, where are we going to be 20 years from now? Is telepathy possible?
Well, they reckon it is already, don't they?
Yeah, they reckon the military's already experimented with.
Well, you've got remote viewing, which technically is a form of telepathy.
Have you ever read the book by Ingo Swann?
I've got it. I've just not listened to it yet.
Yeah, it's an incredible book, man. Like Lou Elizondo talks about, whatever people's thoughts are on him. He's talked about, using this as like psychic espionage, if you will, where it's been completely militarized. And Hal Puthoff was recently talking about how remote viewing was used to recover a Russian aircraft that had come down in American airspace. And obviously, America wanted to get to this first before it was recovered. And they were able to literally go through remote or capitalize on remote viewing to actually get the coordinates and able to retrieve this aircraft that had come down. So then they could have a look at what technology the Russians had and whatnot. So for anyone who thinks this is, it's purely stuff of science fiction or fantasy, I was told a long time ago that like the military have experimented with a lot of this stuff. Go back to Hitler and, World War II. He was obsessed with the occult. Absolutely obsessed. Any advantage he could have got for worldwide dominion.
Well, weren't he obsessed with Aleister Crowley and what he'd been doing?
Yeah. Yeah, and you look at the NASA involvement with alchemy and, what's the guy's name? Jack Parsons, the inventor of the rocket engine. Go down that rabbit hole, have a look into him, and he was best mates with Aleister Crowley. He was head of the Church of Satan.
Well, we was talking about Rendlesham earlier. Aleister Crowley had dealings at Rendlesham as well.
Yeah, I've heard that too.
So
it's funny, like one of the things in my own research that I've discovered is where a lot of these UFO hotspots are around the world and, even in this country. There's always proof of occult activity very nearby. There was at Rendlesham, there was up in Paul Sinclair's neck of the woods. Yeah, the Denby, that has a concentrated area where all this type of phenomenon seems to exist in one place. What I guess my question for you is like, what traits do UFOs have with Dogman and Dogman to occultism worship and cattle mutilations and whatnot?
Maybe it's a runner.
You've got all these different types of phenomenon that seem to concentrate and exist in one place, like a hive.
Well, they say Dogman's some sort of protector, guardian, like if, say, for example, greys or reptilians are out on Earth and they're looking for whatever things they're looking for, the Dogmen are there to protect while they discover.
All right, that's I've not heard that before, but
Maybe.
you know, who knows? I'm no one.
I ain't got a clue. It's I don't know.
It blows my mind, mate. But like there's places, just as important as Skinwalker Ranch, around the world. There's a lot
Oh,
of
yeah.
in the UK.
Yeah.
Hell of
Yeah.
a lot. And it's
Loads.
like Denby. I traced back. There was dogman or werewolf sightings going back to the 1800s there.
Yeah.
You've got Denby Asylum there, where the first witches were actually sent. So they were actually tried in Chester Crown Court when the witch trial started.
Yeah.
And then they were shipped off to what's known as Denby Mental Asylum, which most haunted and some of the other urban ex-explorers.
Yeah.
But then you've got a rich history of UFO sightings around that area. People that aren't even into this subject, getting brilliant footage of these flying discs and triangles and, weird
all sorts.
that. Yeah.
It's like, have I shown you the one that I seen, the not air balloon? I'll just show you quickly. This is back from just over 12 months ago in Cambridge.
That's so weird, isn't it? Even the shape is so unconventional.
Yeah, and that's two of them. The one on the left was the one that I seen the day after.
That's crazy. It almost looks like a rock, doesn't it? The shape.
They both at the time looked like hot air balloons, but they're not that.
No, I can usually tell.
I know they're not that because I researched hot air balloons. We even emailed the companies around the area to find out if they had any hot air balloons out. Plus, they have to be bright colours and the flying conditions and all that. And this was all low cloud.
I wouldn't even say that's a Mylar balloon, man. Like you get the numbers for people.
Oh yeah, no.
That. It's nothing
not
like that.
Unless it can follow me for 18 miles at 65 mile an hour. It's definitely not a helium balloon.
You got followed by this thing.
Right the side of it, all the way from Northampton to Cambridge.
That's some distance as well.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow.
I'll tell you that story one day.
Yeah, definitely, man. We'll have to share stories over a beer or something. But
yeah, definitely.
Yeah. Right, mate.
We're done, I think.
Unfortunately, I think we've done an hour and 37 minutes. So
yes. So what I'm going to do before I go and before you shoot off, I am back on later at 8:30 tonight. So in 5 hours from now, it'll be myself, Nicole, Abby, possibly Michelle, and the one and only Ronnie LeBlanc. He's going to be coming on talking about his book, Interdimensional, amongst other stuff. And then we're back on Monday with your good self, doing part 2 in the UFO files.
USOs.
That's 8:30. Can't speak. 8:30 Monday, 8:30 p.m. UK time, 3:30 Eastern time, 2:30 Central time. Because the clocks have gone back here, I'm out of sync. Gone forward. Oh, right. So we're 5 hours. We're back to the 5 hour time difference between us and New York. So yeah, that's it. Right. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to play it for the third time. I'm going to play the video and the telephone conversation between myself and Paul Howard. The imagery in there is what I've made with AI. The photos and the video that Paul's taken, you can tell they're legit, but I've just recreated what it is that Paul was talking about. So I'm going to end on that, then I'll play the outro. Please do come back tonight, 8:30. Like I said, we'll have Ronnie LeBlanc on, and then on Monday we're going to be joined by Jay and talking about part 2 of USOs. So on that note, have a great weekend, Jay. I'll speak to you over the weekend anyway.
Happy Easter to all your viewers as well, mate. And let's do this again Monday.
Yes. Right. I'll see you then. Take care, everyone. Hopefully we'll see you in 5 hours' time. Ta-ra.
So it was completely dark, obviously, and I went outside to look outside. Yeah. And what I could hear was the church down the road, the bell ringing. but the bell is rung by pull cords and not electrical, and it was going dung, 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 and then I sort of came back in and said, Jen, listen to the church bell ringing. And
Yeah.
obviously it's a pull cord church bell, not an electric one. There was no reason for it to be ringing. And then as soon as I came back through, the light was just fading away.
Yeah.
And then literally minutes later, telly came on and all the electric came on. What do you make of that?
There was something going on, definitely. So,
Because
how
we're not
big?
far from...
Yeah, how big do you think it was? I know you said it looked like the moon, but could you tell like distance and size ratio?
It was... I would say it was probably the light. It was pure white because I could see it through the darkness.
Yeah.
Even though it was cloudy, I could see it. And I would have said it was slightly larger than the moon when I saw it. And then it went to the right of lights from left to right and then right back to left again. I said, Jen, look at this light. And I thought, it can't be the moon moving because it couldn't move that quick. And then within a split second, power went out literally everywhere in the whole the Charlie our postcode.
Yeah.
And then I went outside to check and thought, well, that's really odd. And it was really creepy outside. There was no noise, no birds, nothing, absolutely dead silent.
Really?
And the church bell was going ding,
No.
ding.
all you needed was fog after that. And
I
that'd
didn't
be
fog,
it.
I'd locked myself in. But we know that the church bell is pulled by hand. It's not an electrical one. And that was it. And then I came back through and I just see the light fading away.
Yeah.
Like it just sort of like the clouds that went over the top of it. And then within minutes later, everything came back on. The TV, the electric, everything came on.
It
All
sounds
street
like
lights.
whatever it was had some sort of power surge.
Yeah.
But was there? I know you went outside, but could you hear anything other than the bell? Could you smell anything? See anything else?
I went outside, it was like a low vibrational noise.
Yeah.
Like a hum. Like a mm.
Yeah.
And I said to Jim, what on earth is that? Thinking maybe it's we obviously live down a cul-de-sac, so there's no power transformers or anything like that. And then I did wonder whether it was electrical cable somewhere humming, I don't know. But it was just literally 10, 15 minutes at the most, and it was all back to normal again. The bell had stopped ringing, and then all the lights came back on, everything came back on.
Very
because we're not far from Biggin Hill.
Yeah.
We have Kenley, RAF Kenley to our left, Biggin Hills to our right, and Croydon Airport's across the thing. I've looked up on the local news, see if anybody else has it. A few people have had the power cut, but nobody noticed the light. But it was just that I saw it through the door.
Yeah.
Because we don't have the curtain
shut.
shut.
I was going to say, if people are not noticing it and they just sat there, then everything goes off.
Yeah.
It's going to be, right. And they're not going to think of going outside and looking at a light.
No, I just saw it because it caught my eye when I was sitting there. I thought, what on earth is that light out there?
Yeah.
And then it went to my right, and I thought, really? And I sort of went out and looked at the clouds, thinking the moon can't move across the sky that quick.
No.
And as I looked at it, it went back to it went from right to left.
Oh.
And then everything went out.
Yeah.
Gone.
Could you send me your coordinates? Obviously, don't say it on air because I want to use this for one of the shows, if that's okay.
Yeah. Yeah, of course it is. Yeah.
So if you can send me like your postcode, and then I'll have a look on the Enigma app and see if there's anything else around that area at that time.
Yeah, but we had a warning come up on the phone saying an unexpected power loss in the whole of the CR6 area.
Yeah.
We don't know what's caused this, but we will try and get the power on as soon as possible.
Right.
So they didn't even know themselves what had happened.
It's my reckoning. It's something to do with whatever that thing was, that object, that light. It's got to be.
Yeah.
Because, like you said, as soon as you seen it, then the power went.
Yeah.
And then once it had gone, it all come back on again.
Yeah. Literally, it was the light was there. It was fading slowly away for 10 minutes or so, if probably a bit longer. And then as soon as I looked at it, it was completely dark outside, and the ding telly came on, all the lights came back on, the church bell rung for a little while and then stopped.
Yeah.
But the church bell is manually pulled. So this is the church that's just at the bottom of our road. It's a Commonwealth graveyards that has soldiers in there. I'll just quickly show you whether you use this or not. It's up to you, mate. I'll give you an idea what the church is like. It's really, really old church.
And they take me to the planet.